What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. Today is the 27th of January, Tuesday. Going over the price action on Nasdaq 100. No trades. Well, I took one trade today while at work, but it's only like a small scalp, and then I just exited prematurely because it wasn't the ideal position. So let me show you that execution on the chart. So let's go to this M1 chart. See it right here. So only one small execution today right here. I just went in and came back out, because I was at work and I saw the opportunity, but it wasn't the ideal entry. Wanted to get a long position, but when I realized we had already run up a little bit too high, so I didn't like where we were at, so I just exited. Let's go now to the higher time frame, and then we'll go over some of the moves that took place today. So starting with the 4-hour time frame is what we look like. So this is Nasdaq 100 on the 4-hour time frame. So we pretty much just broke out to the upside and we're going to continue to run. So looking at this from the higher time frame perspective, so this is this weekly candle here, and we didn't even have a week here. Open with a gap last night, night before, Sunday night, came down, and then we just bought right through. Now this is Wednesday's candle and we open up with a gap again and we're just heading up. I doubt this is sustainable. We should have a little bit of a pullback inside of here, but let us see what we get tomorrow. So tomorrow is FOMC statement, so we should be hearing from Jerome Powell tomorrow at around 2 p.m. So 2 p.m. tomorrow we should hear the federal rate decision going forward. This should be the first statement for the year. We're in the last week of the month, so the monthly candle is pretty much at its range. So when I'm looking at all three indices, it currently looks like we want to head back to all-time highs. We only a few points away. I think SPX already at all-time highs. Right now, looking at this chart right here, we only this is less than 200 points away from creating a new high on this index. And we have some heavy hitters reporting earnings, like I said last time. So Apple and Microsoft and all of those reporting earnings by the end of this week. So that should give us some momentum. But the main driver this week should be the FOMC statement tomorrow. So that is Nasdaq 100. This is SPX 500. So it actually created a new high. Let me see if it's reflecting on this chart right here. See, currently the weekly candle very strong, weekly push, and we only at Tuesday. So I'm actually wondering if this thing going to be reversed. We've been in this range for a little while now, so let us see if we're going to sustain this rally or we're going to completely reverse. But see, currently where this is at, it's currently at all-time highs. So let me zoom out a bit and show you. So created a new high within the overnight session currently. That's what we're looking at right there. I think US 30 is the weaker of the three indices. So currently it's sitting all the way down here. So the industrials kind of lagging right now. So today we actually had a sell-off when the others went up. So we had a pullback here, and currently the new day for Wednesday open up and it's barely moving up. So possibly we could have created the high of the week for this one. So a little bit of a divergence going on there. So that is it. Looking at gold, new all-time high again. Continuing gold now at $5,200 per ounce and still climbing. So a lot of speculation, but somehow people don't trust the US dollar anymore, so they're still hedging with gold, even though the index is still going up. So they're hedging with gold, and we're just creating new highs. And it's the same thing for silver. Won't even pull up that chart right now, but that is it on the higher time frame. Going down to this 1 hour chart and looking into today's action. So not much of an entry presented itself today. Looking back at this, so let me zoom in here. So this entire chart is today's action. This is my highlighter too. So this is today's action. So from 6 p.m. yesterday to right here. So classic buy day, except we didn't have a pullback. The pullback came right around New York session there about, and then we just continued higher. So we bought right through Asia going into London. When we got to midnight, we had a slight consolidation, pullback in London. Then we swept those highs and reversed a little bit in New York, and then we just continued up. So we closed at the high of the day, and so we currently open up with another gap to continue making new highs. And it's pretty much the same thing on SPX. So we have new day opening gap here and new day opening gap here. So let us see if we just go and continue buying up. Going down to the 15-minute time frame. 15-minute time frame right here. There were a few entries, but if you're not timing the market correctly, then you possibly wouldn't have gotten in. I was at work, so I couldn't get in on these moves, and also I didn't wake up for London session, so I couldn't catch the entry. So Asia created the low of the day pretty much right here. Low of the day in Asia right here, and we only had an internal pullback during the day right around here. So sideways to London into New York. Once we had the New York open, we just ran up, give us a nice little push. I think Trump had a little speech in the afternoon, but that didn't do much. We just consolidated, and then we close at the highs and break out now for current Wednesday's candle. So let's go over now some of the opportunities that presented themselves today. So switching now to trading view, and this is what we did. So starting from Asia session, let me zoom out here a bit. So little bit of a gap here. This thing doesn't show it on this particular index. Let me zoom out this. Alright, so these were the initial entries here, right around 7, then 8, then 9. All of these hourly candles, no wicks, and we just continued up. A little bit of a sideways movement before breaking out here. So 10 was sideways. By the time we got to 11, we had a push up and then a pullback. And right at the midnight open, we had a little bit of a pullback here, and that would have been the first macro highlighted here. So right around 10:10, we had a breakout going into London session, or Frankfurt rather. So right around 1 a.m. here we had a push up. This could have been a nice little scalp from the low here. This would have been a 1 to 6. And during the macro, depending on how you time your entries, this could have been a decent, say, 30-point push right here. Move sideways going into London. We had a little bit of a pullback here. Not the cleanest of action right here. Pullback right there. Pullback right here. Retrace again back to the highs. Little bit of a sell off, and then we started to pull back a little bit. So London didn't give the cleanest of move either. We got a little bit of a sell here. Could have used an inversion to get in right there, or my signature entry to get in would have been better right there. So this entry here was a decent one. If you're reading the price action, because we had a breaker structure here, pullback, came down again, couldn't run the highs, and then we retraced back into this little order block and then sold off again. So this would have been a nice little trade as well. Stops above the highs to be safe, and we came back down into this order block here for a 1 to 4 risk to reward. So that was it for the first part of London. By the time we got into late London, or mid London rather, it would have been a buy opportunity right around 5 a.m. So 450 to 510, we got a breakout buy here. My entry technique gave you an entry right here. No inversion. I think I got here state of change of state right here. Pull back a little bit, and then we just continued for another 1 to, this would have been 1 to 6 initially before pulling back, going into New York. Now going into my daytime, this is right around the time I'm leaving out for work. 7 a.m. we had a little bit of a sell-off right here, consolidated. Was looking for a bit of a sell right here while I was on my phone, but it didn't pull back into the area that I was looking for. So we had this range here, highlighted this fair value gap. I wanted this to at least trade up, and then we could have gotten a sell. So that didn't play out, but we did get that push. So we dropped, and this was the main pullback for the day, and this gave us discount. So this pullback came below this red line here. This is midnight open, and actually come below New York open. So we came pull back here. We had another inversion entry. So this entry was the most discounted entry during the main session. Inversion right here, nice little buy, quick TP, less than 20 minutes run, and then now started to just range. Could have held this for the rest of the day, but most people that just TP here, depending on the size that you use. This is an easy 100-point move, 120-point move right there. So that was the main push for the day, and then we just started to range. So ranging out the 10 a.m. we didn't really get a silver bullet unless you would use this. A little bit of a pullback here, but this is a wide inversion right here. So my entry technique, I could have gotten in right here for a little entry during this macro, and we had another one here outside the macro window. By the time we got to 11, we got a nice push again for 30 points from the low of the macro right there, and then this is just sideways movement going into lunchtime. A little push again for another 30 points before pulling back. Came back into this fair value gap right here, and we got a push again going into the PM session. PM session sideways again, not much of a push. So another little scalp right there, returning back to entry, and to end the day we had a little push and then selling off to close the day. Still overall closing the day at the highs and the session pretty much ended there. And it's the same thing for SPX 500, US 30, a little bit of an opposite move. Let me find US 30, a little bit of an opposite move, so we had some divergence, so we kind of sold off. But that is pretty much it. Let me show you now. So tomorrow we have some stuff on the calendar. So Canada interest rate, then US, and that is pretty much it. Let us see what we get going tomorrow, but I'm doubtful that I'm going to stay up for London session because we already push up. This is the current setup for Asian session. So this part of Tokyo, 7 p.m. Now we can do hourly candle, and we already blast off for, let's see how much points here, over almost 100 points. Yeah, so this is showing me about 90 points here, it within a 2-hour push. So first push right there, and then the second hour during this macro, little bit of a pullback here and another push here. So sideways there. Let us see what we get going in. But usually before a big news event like this, we don't have much of a pullback, well, much of a move in either direction. So again, that is it for today's video, it for the review. Let's see what we get going into FOMC tomorrow, expecting some volatility. But until next time, I'll catch you. Peace.